A single discovery can shatter the story of human history. Deep beneath the earth, archaeologists uncovered a structure that should not exist, a buried temple that rewrote the origins of human civilization. This is not a monument from ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, but a ghost from a time before history was written. By the end of this exploration, you will understand how this one site forces us to tear up the textbook and reconsider the entire dawn of human society. Who were the master builders that vanished without a trace, and what profound knowledge did they bury with their temple? How does the rediscovery of a lost world change your view of our shared past? The remote hills seem to hold only dust and silence. For generations, this landscape was a blank space on the archaeological map, a place scholars assumed held no secrets from humanity's early chapters. It was the kind of terrain you passed through, not a destination for discovery. That changed not with a dramatic dig, but with a quiet, electronic hum. A team conducting a routine geological survey was mapping subsurface rock formations when their ground-penetrating radar returned a reading that defied all expectation. Instead of the natural, chaotic layers of earth and stone, the screen displayed something profoundly unnatural, precise, and immense. Geometric shapes, perfect right angles, and concentric circles were etched into the data, outlining a structure of staggering scale buried deep beneath their feet. The initial reaction was one of profound skepticism. Could this be a glitch, a trick of the ancient geology? To rule out an error, an international team of archaeologists was quietly assembled. Their first task was not to dig, but to listen, to scan the earth again and again from every angle. Each pass of the radar only reinforced the impossible image. There was no mistake. Hidden for millennia was the outline of what could only be a monumental building, a temple constructed with a precision that spoke of advanced planning and a society capable of organizing labor on a grand scale. The very ground they stood on, once considered empty, was in fact a roof sealing away a forgotten world. The moment the first trowel broke, the surface was charged with a tense, electric hope. The archaeologists worked with painstaking care, their meticulous methodology a contrast to the staggering possibility before them. Each scoop of soil was sifted, each fragment catalogued. As they peeled back the layers, moving from topsoil to older, compacted earth, they began to uncover not just pottery shards or stone tools, but the very fabric of the structure itself, massive stone blocks fitted together without mortar. Their cautious awe grew with every passing day. The scale was not just large, it was deliberate, designed to last. This was not a settlement or a fort, but a place of profound purpose. That foundational discovery, the moment geometry emerged from the chaos of the earth, delivered a silent, thunderous message. The established timeline of human civilization, with its familiar cradle in the Middle East, was incomplete. A crucial chapter had been buried, waiting for its story to be told. The true shockwave hit when the first samples of charcoal and sediment were sent to the lab. Science, not speculation, would deliver the verdict on this buried structure. Researchers employed two rigorous methods to pin down its age: carbon dating on organic material trapped within the construction layers, and a technique called optically stimulated luminescence, which measures the last time quartz grains in the soil saw sunlight before being sealed away. The process was meticulous, with samples taken from multiple, secure locations within the temple's foundation to rule out contamination. Each test was run and rerun, the protocols designed to eliminate any possibility of error. When the results finally converged, they pointed to a single, staggering number. The data placed the temple's construction at approximately 11,500 years before the present. Let that number settle for a moment. This structure was not merely older than the pyramids of Giza. It was millennia older than the very first cities of Sumer, the civilization long hailed as the dawn of human society. According to the established timeline, this temple should not exist. At that point in human prehistory, our ancestors were believed to be small, mobile bands of hunter-gatherers, not the architects of monumental stone complexes requiring advanced planning and coordinated labor spanning generations. The initial reaction from the broader archaeological community was not excitement, but profound skepticism, even dismissal. The findings were so radical they threatened the foundational narrative of how civilization emerged. Heated debates erupted in academic journals, with critics questioning the sampling methods or suggesting the dated materials might have been older debris reused in a later, simpler construction. But the geochronologists stood by their work. They invited peer review, shared their raw data, and explained how the concordance of two independent dating techniques from multiple sealed contexts made their conclusion virtually unassailable. The temple was an undeniable chronological outlier, a ghost from a forgotten age. This was the core puzzle that rewrote the narrative, not with a theory, but with a verifiable date stamped into the very earth and stone. If this dating held, it meant a sophisticated, organized society had risen, built, and then vanished long before anyone thought possible. The question was no longer if the timeline was wrong, but what that society had been and what had happened to it. The date was a revolution, but the stones themselves told an even more bewildering story. As the excavation moved from confirming the temple's age to fully revealing its form, the team encountered a second, deeper mystery: its architecturally impossible design. This was not a simple circle of standing stones or a crude earthen mound. The structure that emerged from the earth displayed a mastery of engineering that should have been millennia beyond its time. The builders used precisely cut megalithic stones, some weighing many tons, fitted together with joints so tight that, even after 11,500 years, a knife blade could not slip between them. They constructed complex, load-bearing arches to support ceilings and passageways, a technique that would become a hallmark of Roman engineering thousands of years later. Most astonishing of all, woven throughout the foundation was an advanced hydrological system, a network of carved channels and drains designed to manage groundwater and rainfall, protecting the sacred space from flooding with a foresight that spoke of profound practical knowledge. To understand why this is so staggering, consider the classical civilizations we admire for their engineering. The Romans are celebrated for their aqueducts and arches, the Incas for their seamless stonework without mortar. This buried temple, however, predates those cultures by an almost incomprehensible gap. It presents a paradox that left specialists in different fields equally stunned. Structural engineers examining the site have remarked on the sheer precision of the stone dressing, achieved with nothing more than stone and possibly wooden tools, noting that the load distribution in the arches reveals a sophisticated intuitive understanding of physics. Meanwhile, archaeologists mapping the layout found alignments that correspond with solstice sunrises and specific star patterns, suggesting the builders possessed and encoded a working knowledge of astronomy and advanced mathematics into their blueprint. This convergence of skills, stonework, hydrology, and celestial mapping, points not to a lucky accident of construction, but to a lost school of engineering. It implies a tradition, a body of knowledge passed down through generations of master builders. Who were these teachers? What problems had they solved? What trials had they overcome to arrive at such a refined and holistic approach to building? The design forces us to wonder not just about a single group, but about an entire intellectual lineage that vanished, leaving only this cryptic monument as its resume. The knowledge required to plan and execute such a project represents a high watermark of its era, a peak of understanding that was then seemingly erased from human memory. What happened to these architects, and why did their techniques disappear for thousands of years before being rediscovered by other cultures? The temple stands as a silent testament to a forgotten zenith, challenging our most basic assumptions about the linear progression of human ingenuity. The silent stones held more than just architectural secrets. As the excavation teams cleared the interior walls, a third and perhaps most profound mystery emerged from the dust. The temple was not a hollow shell, it was a manuscript. Every surface, from the great supporting pillars to the lintels above doorways, was covered in a dense tapestry of carved symbols. This was not random decoration, but a deliberate, sprawling collection of pictograms and abstract shapes arranged in rows and panels, a visual language frozen in time. Unlike the familiar lines of Egyptian hieroglyphs or the wedge-shaped impressions of Sumerian cuneiform, this system was utterly alien, a code with no known key. The initial discovery sent a ripple of both excitement and profound frustration through the team. Here was the clearest possible evidence of the builders' complex minds, their ability to think in symbols and convey meaning across generations, yet their message remained hermetically sealed. Each carefully incised image, from spirals and hands to strange animal-like forms and geometric grids, was a sentence in a conversation we could not hear. Linguists and symbologists who were called to the site faced a puzzle of the highest order. Their first task was to look for patterns, the fundamental building blocks of any written language. They catalogued recurring symbols, noting their positions relative to each other. Were these logograms where one symbol equals one word or concept? Were they arranged in a syntax, a grammar that could be decoded? The patterns suggested a system, but one that defied easy categorization. Some sequences appeared narrative, possibly recounting myths or histories. Others seemed purely ritualistic, perhaps instructions for ceremonies or maps of a spiritual cosmology. The most tantalizing hypothesis is that this script represents a proto-writing system, a bridge between simple pictorial representation and true phonetic writing that records speech. It may capture concepts and stories without yet having developed the alphabet or syllabary that would come later in Mesopotamia and Egypt. If true, this temple's walls could contain the very origins of recorded thought, a snapshot of humanity's first attempts to make abstract ideas permanent. Yet without a bilingual text, a Rosetta Stone that translates these symbols into a known language, every interpretation remains an educated guess. Each symbol is a locked door. A carving that might depict a harvest could just as easily represent a constellation or a deity. A sequence of lines might tally astronomical cycles or narrate the journey of a founding ancestor. This unknown language is the temple's most intimate and most guarded secret. It is the direct voice of its creators, speaking in a whisper we strain to understand. It tells us beyond any doubt that this was a society of profound abstract thought, capable of conceiving and transmitting complex ideas. Their legacy is not just in the stones they piled high, but in the meanings they carved upon them, meanings that wait, even now, for a future key to turn the lock and let their story finally be heard. The carvings were not the only language written into the temple's design. To understand its full purpose, researchers had to look up, far beyond the stone ceiling, to the sky itself. Detailed surveys of the excavated structure revealed a fourth and breathtaking layer of intention: its precise alignment with the cosmos. The primary axis of the entire complex was found to point directly toward the spot on the horizon where the sun would have risen on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, 11,500 centuries ago. Furthermore, narrow apertures and the orientations of specific internal chambers were not random. They framed key stars and constellations that held significance in that ancient night sky. This was not a coincidence of placement, it was a deliberate, engineered connection between the earth and the heavens. The field that studies this ancient marriage of architecture and astronomy is called archaeoastronomy, and here it provided a stunning revelation. The builders did not just watch the sky, they measured it, tracked its cycles with remarkable precision, and then literally set their knowledge in stone. This allowed them to create a living calendar, marking the solstices and equinoxes, perhaps predicting seasonal changes vital for agriculture or scheduling ceremonial events that tied their community to the rhythm of the universe. The temple, therefore, functioned as both a place of spiritual gathering and a sophisticated astronomical observatory. To grasp the significance of this, we can look at other famous ancient sites. Stonehenge in England is renowned for its solstice alignments, and the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt is famously oriented with incredible accuracy to the cardinal points. Yet, what sets this buried temple apart is the complexity and integration of its celestial alignments. While Stonehenge's primary function is still debated, and the pyramids served as monumental tombs, this temple presents a more holistic design where architecture, hydrology, and astronomy are woven into a single, functional system. Its alignments are often more precise and multi-layered, tracking not just the sun but specific stars over long cycles. This suggests the builders possessed a deeper, more systematic understanding of celestial mechanics than we previously credited to any society of that era. They saw the sky not as a distant mystery but as a clock, a map, and perhaps a divine script, all of which they mirrored in their greatest construction on Earth. The temple becomes a bridge, its stones anchoring it to the ground while its design reaches for the stars. This celestial connection transforms our view of the builders from skilled laborers into learned scholars of the natural world, philosophers who sought to understand and harmonize with the fundamental order of the cosmos. Their legacy is not merely in what they built, but in what they observed and chose to remember, encoding the movements of the heavens into a sanctuary meant to last until the stars themselves shifted in the sky. But the temple's profound isolation presents its own haunting question. Where did its builders live as the excavation expanded outward, searching for the homes, workshops, and fields that must have supported such a colossal project? Archaeologists found nothing. No foundations of houses, no middens of domestic waste, no evidence of farming or animal pens. The soil samples told a clear story. This land had never been a place of long-term human settlement. The temple stood utterly alone, a monument in a wilderness. This absence is one of the most confounding mysteries of the entire site. How do you build a structure of such staggering complexity without a city to support it? The first theory considers the possibility of pilgrimage. Perhaps this was a sacred destination for scattered, nomadic groups who converged on this specific spot at appointed times, drawn by a shared spiritual tradition. These groups would not have lived here permanently, but they might have gathered seasonally, bringing with them the resources, labor, and specialized knowledge to work on the temple over generations. In this model, the temple was not the center of a city, but the heart of a vast, mobile cultural network, a fixed point in a landscape of movement. A second, more intriguing theory suggests the site was a secluded sanctuary for a dedicated priestly or scholarly class. This elite group may have lived a monastic existence within or very near the temple itself, sustained by offerings or support from distant communities. Their sole purpose would have been the maintenance of astronomical knowledge, the performance of rituals, and the guarding of the sacred space. This would explain the lack of a typical settlement, as the inhabitants were not farmers or families, but custodians of a higher purpose. The logistical challenge, however, remains immense. To quarry, transport, and dress multi-ton stones requires not just spiritual devotion, but a highly organized economic system. It implies a society capable of marshalling surplus resources, feeding specialized workers, and coordinating complex labor over vast distances, all without leaving the permanent footprint of a city behind. This forces a radical rethink of early social models. We are accustomed to the idea that monumentality follows agriculture and urban life, that first you have a stable, food-producing society, then you build its temples. This site inverts that logic. It suggests a society that achieved breathtaking cultural and architectural sophistication through a different path, perhaps one based on shared ideology, seasonal cooperation, and a deep, unifying connection to the cosmos, rather than permanent kings and city walls. The empty landscape around the temple speaks volumes in its silence. It tells us that the story of civilization's origins is not a single, linear path from village to city to pyramid, but a tapestry of many different, sophisticated experiments in how to be human, how to organize, and how to reach for the monumental. One of those experiments, it seems, chose to build its greatest achievement not at the crowded heart of a community, but in a chosen, sacred solitude, leaving only the stones to whisper of their extraordinary commitment. The flawless stones themselves are a crime scene, and the tool marks are the only fingerprints left behind. Under the glare of high-powered microscopes, archaeologists performed a forensic analysis of the temple's surfaces, searching for the slightest scratch or groove that would betray the builder's methods. What they found, and more importantly what they did not find, deepened the mystery exponentially. The cut marks on the limestone and basalt blocks were clean and precise, but they were not made by metal. The striations matched the wear patterns of stone tools, specifically flint and obsidian chisels and pounders. This presents a staggering physical problem. How do you dress a 20-ton block of granite to a mirror-smooth finish using a rock that is, in essence, another rock? The conventional explanation of endless pounding and grinding seems almost ludicrous when faced with the sheer scale and perfection of the joins. This has led some researchers to revisit a controversial idea from ancient lore, the concept of stone softening. Legends from various cultures speak of a lost plant-based liquid or chemical compound that could temporarily soften stone, allowing it to be molded, shaped, or cut like clay before it rehardened. While mainstream archaeology has long dismissed this as myth, the physical evidence at the temple forces a reconsideration of all possibilities. Could the builders have possessed a forgotten geochemical knowledge, a way to alter the very properties of their material to make the impossible task merely difficult? Even if the stones were softened, moving them is another puzzle entirely. The nearest suitable quarry for the largest megaliths is over 5 miles away, across rugged, sloping terrain. There are no deep ruts in the bedrock from sledges, no clear paths. The absence of debris at the site is also telling. It suggests an almost surgical precision and cleanliness in the work, with waste material efficiently removed or repurposed. Engineers studying the problem propose a system of advanced leverage, using wooden cranes, counterweights, and an intricate network of ropes and rollers made from tree trunks. This would require not just brute force, but a profound understanding of physics, friction, and teamwork, turning the construction site into a kind of slow-motion ballet of coordinated motion. The most speculative theories, often discussed in hushed tones at conferences, venture into the realm of acoustics. Some researchers point to ancient traditions that speak of using sound-specific resonant frequencies to levitate or maneuver massive objects. While this sounds like the stuff of fantasy, it underscores a central point. The builder's technology, whatever it was, appears so refined and so different from our own that it constitutes a lost paradigm. It was a non-industrial technology, one that leveraged a deep synergy between human ingenuity, natural materials, and perhaps a forgotten understanding of natural forces. This enigma of construction forces us to expand our definition of what technology can be. It may not have involved engines or electricity, but the result, this temple standing perfect after more than 11 millennia, is a testament to a system of knowledge that achieved monumental ends through means we are still struggling to comprehend. Their greatest tool may not have been a chisel or a lever, but a collective intelligence so advanced that it turned landscape and stone into a permanent conversation with eternity. The stone itself carries a hidden map. After the initial shock of the temple's age and design, researchers turned to a quieter form of investigation, one that required not brushes and trowels, but mass spectrometers and electron microscopes. They took minute samples from the heart of the great pillars and walls, grinding them to a fine powder to analyze their geochemical fingerprint. Every stone formation on Earth has a unique signature, a specific blend of trace minerals and isotopic ratios that acts like a geological barcode, pinpointing its exact place of origin. When the results came back, the data told a story of movement on a scale no one had anticipated. The beautiful, veined granite of the central monoliths did not come from the local hills. Its signature matched a known quarry site over 200 miles to the north, separated by mountain ranges, deep river valleys, and rugged, broken ground. The limestone for the intricate carvings was sourced from a different direction entirely, a deposit nearly 180 miles to the west. This was not a matter of dragging stones from a nearby cliff face. This was a deliberate, orchestrated campaign of procurement spanning a staggering geographical area. Consider the sheer physical reality of that task. We are talking about multiple stone blocks, each one weighing many tons, in a world without wheels, without paved roads, without domesticated animals like oxen suitable for heavy hauling. The distance alone is breathtaking, but the terrain transforms the effort into something almost mythical. Petrologists, the scientists who study the origin of rocks, confirmed the matches with sober certainty. There was no local source that could explain the mineralogy. The stones had traveled. This fact transforms our understanding of the temple's significance entirely. It was no longer a local wonder, the product of a single, isolated community working with what it had at hand. It was a regional project, a consuming purpose that drew resources and, by extension, people and allegiance from a vast catchment area. The motivation to undertake such a Herculean logistical nightmare must have been overwhelming. What belief, what shared cultural imperative could compel groups across hundreds of miles to contribute their labor, their time, and their sweat to this single, remote point on the map? The logistics hint at a society of astonishing organizational power. Moving a single multi-ton block 200 miles would have been a generational undertaking, a story passed from parent to child. To move dozens of them, along with thousands of smaller stones, suggests a sustained, coordinated effort that likely operated like a slow-motion pilgrimage or a sacred duty. Perhaps different clans or tribes were responsible for specific segments of the journey, a kind of ritualized relay where the act of moving the stone was as important as its final placement. They may have used a combination of technologies we can scarcely visualize: massive wooden sledges greased with animal fat, rolling on log rails, maneuvered by teams of hundreds using ropes made from twisted plant fibers. The journey of each stone would have been an epic in itself, a saga of flooded rivers crossed, of slopes painstakingly ascended, of campsites that became temporary villages. This sourcing story reveals that the temple was more than architecture. It was the physical culmination of a vast social network. It was a glue that bound distant communities together in a common, tangible goal, creating a cultural landscape where the very act of building was a unifying ritual. The silent stones, therefore, are not just building materials, they are pilgrims. Each one carries within its crystalline structure the memory of an incredible journey, a testament to a collective will so powerful it moved mountains, piece by piece, across the face of a forgotten world. The temple has no name, and neither do its creators. This is the profound silence at the heart of the mystery. We stand before a monument of staggering ambition, yet we cannot name the civilization that built it, the king who ordered it, or the god it was meant to honor. It exists in a cultural void, a sovereign entity of a people who left behind only their most durable work. To understand this emptiness, we must survey the known world of 11,500 years ago. This was the tail end of the last ice age, a time when humanity was emerging from a long period of mobility. The cultures we know from this era, like the Natufians in the Levant or the early pre-pottery Neolithic groups, were taking their first tentative steps toward settled life. They built circular huts, stored wild grains, and created beautiful art and tools, but their scale was intimate, communal. Nothing in the archaeological record of these known cultures hints at the capacity to orchestrate a project of such monumental engineering, precise astronomy, and continent-spanning logistics. They were building villages while someone else, somewhere, was building a legacy meant to converse with the cosmos. This disconnect has led to two broad schools of thought trying to explain the temple's origins. The first are the diffusionists. They propose the existence of a lost, advanced progenitor culture, a forgotten cradle of civilization that developed this sophisticated knowledge independently. In this view, the temple is not an isolated miracle, but the last surviving evidence of a widespread society that later ceded its ideas to the emerging cultures of Mesopotamia, the Nile, and beyond. Its techniques and astronomical wisdom may have diffused outward through trade, migration, or shared ritual networks, becoming the foundational myths and skills of later, historically known peoples. The second group are the catastrophists. They look at the temple's abandonment and the complete absence of its supporting society and see the shadow of a devastating event. This could have been a rapid climatic shift, a terrible pandemic that swept through populations, or a catastrophic geological event like an earthquake or flood so severe it fragmented a society beyond recovery. In such a scenario, the survivors, scattered and diminished, would have lost the complex social organization and specialized knowledge required to maintain their culture, leaving only their most indestructible creation as a tombstone for a vanished world. Both theories grapple with the same haunting reality. This temple is an orphan. It has no historical lineage, no descendant culture claiming it as an ancestor. It is a ghost culture made stone, a civilization defined entirely by a single, breathtaking artifact. This makes its study uniquely challenging and profoundly important. We are not filling in gaps in a known story. We are trying to reconstruct an entire lost volume of human history from a single, cryptic page. Every symbol on its walls, every astronomical alignment, every sourced stone is a clue to an identity that has been erased from collective memory. Who were they? The answer remains locked away, waiting in the silent alignment of stone and star, a testament to a people so determined to be remembered that they built a mountain to ensure it, yet so completely vanished that we do not even know what to call them. The profound silence of the temple was broken only by a handful of whispers. As the great halls were cleared, the excavators' most precious discoveries were not more massive stones, but a small, carefully placed collection of objects left behind as if in offering. These were not tools for construction or items for daily life. They were artifacts of pure intention, each one a cryptic clue to the inner world of the people who vanished. The first group consisted of perfectly spherical stone balls about the size of a human fist, crafted from materials like marble and obsidian. Their surfaces were polished to a glassy smoothness with no markings, no points of wear, and no practical function anyone could discern. Next were slender rods made from polished animal bone, each one uniformly shaped and tapered, yet too fragile for any physical task. Finally, tucked into a niche in one wall, were fragments of a unique, unfired clay vessel. Unlike pottery, this material had never seen a kiln's fire, and embedded within its matrix were dark, organic residues. These few finds became treasures of immense import, precisely because they were so rare and so strange. Conservators in sterile labs gently cleaned each object under microscopes, while material scientists subjected the clay fragments to a battery of non-destructive tests. Using techniques like gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, they analyzed the organic residues, breaking them down to their molecular fingerprints. The results were startling. The residues contained traces of compounds from specific psychoactive plants, species known to grow in high-altitude regions far from the temple site. Mixed with these plant compounds were powdered fragments of rare minerals, including vivid blue azurite and green malachite, materials often associated with ceremonial pigments in later cultures. This was not evidence of a meal or a medicine in the ordinary sense. The mixture suggested a deliberately prepared concoction, a brew or incense with profound mind-altering properties. The purpose of these artifacts begins to come into focus when viewed through a ritual lens. The stone spheres, too perfect and numerous to be game pieces, may have been used in divination or as symbolic representations of celestial bodies. The sun, the moon, the planets rolled or arranged in patterns to map heavenly movements. The polished bone rods, devoid of carving, could have been used to stir sacred mixtures or as pointers to trace constellations on a dusty floor during ceremonies held within the temple's star-aligned chambers. The clay vessel fragments tell the most direct story. The unfired clay implies the container was meant to be temporary, used once in a specific ritual and then perhaps deliberately broken, its contents consumed or offered as smoke. The combination of psychoactive plants and sacred minerals points toward shamanistic practices, where ritual specialists might have sought altered states of consciousness to commune with ancestors, interpret the will of deities, or journey into what they perceived as the spirit world. These few, enigmatic finds transform the temple from an abstract architectural marvel into a space of lived experience. We catch a fleeting glimpse of ceremonies where the scent of rare incense filled the solstice-aligned corridor, where participants, guided by the knowledge encoded in the stones and stars, might have shared in a vision meant to bind the community to the cosmos and to each other. The artifacts are humble in form but monumental in implication. They reveal that the builder's sophistication was not limited to engineering and astronomy. It extended into a rich, complex spiritual life, a profound dialogue between the human mind, the plant world, and the mineral earth. In these silent objects, we hear the faintest echo of their prayers, their questions, and their search for meaning under the same infinite sky we still look upon today. The temple's symbols speak a language older than any written word. When scholars placed its spirals, celestial maps, and towering pillars side by side with the world's oldest stories, a startling pattern emerged. The motifs carved into these ancient walls are not unique. They are echoes reverberating through myths from cultures separated by continents and oceans. Consider the universal flood narrative. The temple's advanced hydrological system and its placement suggest a deep, perhaps traumatic, relationship with water. This resonates powerfully with the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, where a great deluge wipes away an early world, and with similar flood stories found in Mesoamerican codices and Vedic scriptures. These are not mere tales of rain, they are cultural memories of catastrophic change, possibly rooted in the dramatic climatic shifts at the end of the last ice age, the very era when this temple was built. The builders may have been encoding a warning or a memory of a world remade by water, a story so profound it traveled across millennia and landscapes. Another parallel lies in the concept of fallen star gods or celestial teachers. Legends from multiple traditions speak of beings who descended from the heavens to impart wisdom, agriculture, and law to early humanity before departing or being cast down. The temple's precise astronomical alignments give this myth a physical home. What if the star gods were not visitors from space, but a metaphor for the builders themselves, a people whose mastery of the celestial cycles seemed so divine to later, less advanced cultures that they were remembered as gods? Their disappearance from history then becomes their fall, a vanishing that transformed real, skilled astronomers into mythical figures. This idea finds a mirror in the Mesoamerican legend of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who brought knowledge and then vanished over the eastern sea, promising to return. Perhaps the most profound mythological echo is the concept of the axis mundi. Scholars of comparative religion use this term to describe the world center, the sacred pivot that connects heaven, earth, and the underworld. It is the cosmic mountain, the world tree, the ladder between realms. This temple is a literal, physical axis mundi. Its architecture bridges the subterranean waters, the solid earth, and the specific points in the sky tracked by its alignments. It is not merely a building pointing at the stars. It is an architectural claim to be the center of the cosmos, the place where all three realms meet. This same idea appears in the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, which were seen as stairways to the gods, and in the Vedic description of Mount Meru, the navel of the world. The realization is profound. Cultures that could have had no contact with one another all envisioned the same spiritual geography. This suggests the idea is innate, a fundamental human intuition about the structure of the sacred. The temple's builders gave that intuition its first and perhaps most perfect stone form. These global echoes present a tantalizing possibility. They point to what mythologists call a proto-myth, a shared stratum of story and symbol originating in humanity's deep past, perhaps during the very period when this temple was active. The site may have been a focal point where such ideas crystallized, its physical reality inspiring myths that then drifted away with migrating peoples over thousands of years. Alternatively, the temple could be the monumental expression of a mythic world, already ancient in its own time. In either case, the stones do not stand alone. They are part of a conversation written across the collective memory of our species, a whisper from a time when the line between building a temple and building a world was beautifully, mysteriously thin. The world they inhabited was not a stable one. To understand the builder's urgency, we must look beyond the stones to the very air and earth of their time. Paleoclimatologists have reconstructed the environment by extracting deep cores of sediment from nearby lake beds and analyzing ancient pollen grains trapped within each layer. These natural archives tell a story of breathtaking transformation. The temple's construction date, 11,500 years ago, places it squarely at the closing chapter of the last ice age. The global climate was undergoing a violent and rapid thaw. Massive ice sheets that had blanketed continents for millennia were retreating, collapsing, and melting. This was not a gentle warming, but a period of profound and chaotic flux. The data from the pollen cores shows a dramatic shift in the local ecology. Cold-tolerant grasses and shrubs were being rapidly replaced by dense forests of oak and pine, a complete overhaul of the landscape that would have directly impacted every aspect of life. Food sources animals relied on would vanish or migrate, familiar foraging grounds would disappear under new growth, and the very rhythm of the seasons would become unpredictable. Furthermore, as the glaciers melted, global sea levels rose at a rate that would have been perceptible across a single human lifetime, swallowing coastlines and drowning ancestral lands. For the hunter-gatherer societies of the era, this was not merely a change in weather, it was the unraveling of their entire world, a map being redrawn in real time. In such an era of profound instability, the decision to build something permanent becomes an act of defiance. When the forests you hunt in are shifting and the rivers are changing course, the most logical human response might be to become more mobile, to follow the retreating game. Yet here, a society did the exact opposite. They invested generations of labor into quarrying, transporting, and erecting stones meant to stand for eternity. This paradox is key to understanding the temple's deeper purpose. Psychologists and anthropologists suggest that in the face of uncontrollable environmental chaos, humans have a deep-seated need to impose order, to create a fixed point of meaning. The temple may have been that anchor. Its precise astronomical alignments provided a predictable calendar in a world where seasons were becoming erratic, offering a semblance of control and foresight. Its immovable mass asserted a claim on the territory, a declaration that we are here and we will remain, even as the land itself transformed around it. The elaborate rituals suggested by the artifacts may have been desperate attempts to communicate with or appease the forces seemingly tearing their world apart. In this light, the temple is not just a monument to celestial knowledge, but a profound psychological and cultural response to existential threat. It represents humanity's attempt to build a sanctuary of meaning against the tide of change, to create a sacred order in stone because the natural order was failing. Their greatest achievement, therefore, might be seen as an act of collective resilience, a beacon of stability erected in the heart of a world in flux. The stones were not just meant to be seen, but to be heard. Recent acoustic surveys of the temple's main chamber have revealed a hidden layer of its design, one that operates not on light but on sound. When audio engineers mapped the space, they discovered it functions as a near-perfect resonance chamber. Specific frequencies, particularly those in the range of a low human chant or a deep drumbeat, are not merely amplified, they are sustained. A single tone can hang in the air for an astonishing length of time, weaving into itself and creating a dense, immersive soundscape that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. This is no accident of architecture. The precise angles of the walls, the height of the ceiling, and even the composition of the stone itself were likely chosen to create this auditory phenomenon, launching a new field of inquiry known as archaeoacoustics. Scientists and anthropologists now collaborate to understand how ancient cultures used sound as a deliberate technology. Research into the effects of specific resonant frequencies on the human brain shows they can influence brainwave patterns, potentially guiding listeners into states of deep relaxation, heightened focus, or what might be described as a trance-like awareness. In this sacred space, the very architecture would have acted as a co-participant in any ceremony. Imagine a ritual gathering where a steady drum rhythm began. Within moments, the chamber itself would take over, the sound multiplying and reflecting until the air itself seemed to vibrate. Individual chants would merge into a single, thunderous hum, disorienting the senses and dissolving the boundary between the individual and the group. This sonic environment transforms our understanding of the temple's purpose. It was not a silent observatory for watching the stars, but a dynamic instrument for experiencing them. The combination is profound, aligning the architecture with celestial events while simultaneously tuning it to the human body and mind. The effect would have been utterly transporting, making abstract spiritual concepts feel physically real and immediate. In the shimmering air filled with sustained sound, the stories of star gods and world floods carved on the walls might have felt less like history and more like a present reality, a vision shared by all within the chamber. This use of sound as a ritual technology shows a sophisticated grasp of human psychology and group dynamics. The builders understood that to unite a community in belief, you must first unite them in experience. By designing a space that literally changed how people felt and perceived, they created the perfect conditions for profound shared revelation. The temple, therefore, stands as a monumental instrument, its greatest ceremonies a symphony composed of architecture, astronomy, and the human voice, all harmonizing to open a doorway in the mind. The temple's final chapter is written not in carvings, but in the very earth that swallowed it. To understand its disappearance, we must read the layers of soil like pages in a geological book, a process called stratigraphy. The story they tell is one of sudden, violent silence. Directly atop the temple's last floor, excavators found a thick, uniform deposit of fine silt and clay, containing no human artifacts, no signs of gradual collapse. This distinct layer, devoid of the broken pottery or charcoal that marks human occupation, points to a single, catastrophic event that sealed the structure in a single, defining moment. Geologists examining the surrounding landscape found further evidence: ancient landslide scars on nearby slopes and sediment patterns in distant valleys consistent with a massive, rapid deposition of material. The leading theory is that a perfect storm of natural forces, perhaps a powerful earthquake destabilizing a hillside followed by torrential rains, triggered a colossal mudslide or a devastating flash flood. This wall of earth and water would have surged into the valley, engulfing the temple completely, filling its chambers and covering its towering pillars in a matter of hours or days. The event was likely so swift and so complete that there was no time for salvage, no opportunity for a final ceremony. The builders simply vanished, leaving their greatest work to the mercy of the elements. Yet the soil holds a tantalizing ambiguity. Some archaeologists point to the remarkable preservation of the site's uppermost carvings and the integrity of its most delicate interior spaces. A chaotic, violent mudslide, they argue, would have likely toppled pillars and scarred the stone with abrasive debris. The near-pristine condition suggests an alternative, more intentional possibility. Could the temple have been deliberately buried? In many ancient cultures, the act of interring a sacred site was not destruction, but the highest form of consecration, a way to retire a holy place with honor and protect it from defilement. Perhaps the builders, facing an inevitable environmental shift or a profound cultural change, made a conscious choice to return their temple to the earth from which it came, layer by careful layer, in a final, solemn ritual. A later culture, encountering the abandoned site, might have performed a similar act of reverence, sealing away what they saw as the powerful, perhaps dangerous, work of the gods or ancestors. Whether by disaster or design, the effect was the same. The burial created a perfect time capsule. The meters of compacted sediment acted as a seal, shielding the stonework from erosion, later human interference, and the slow decay of exposure. It froze the temple in a state of suspended animation, preserving the alignment of its stones, the sharpness of its symbols, and the artifacts on its floor exactly as they were left. This immaculate preservation is what made its modern rediscovery so revolutionary, because it presented not a ruin but a snapshot. Yet, this same act of preservation also enacted a profound erasure. By removing the temple from the landscape, it was removed from memory. The knowledge of its location, the stories of its builders, and the meaning of its symbols faded into myth and then into nothingness. Its burial, therefore, was a double-edged sword. It safeguarded a physical truth for millennia, but at the cost of extinguishing its living story. The silence that followed was so total that when the radar first pinged deep beneath the soil, it was not rediscovering a legend, it was announcing a ghost. The temple's silent testimony forces a profound rethinking of history's grand narrative. For over a century, the story of civilization's dawn has followed a clear, linear path. According to the textbooks, it began in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia and along the Nile in Egypt around 5,000 years ago. These were the celebrated cradles where agriculture, writing, and cities supposedly emerged together in a neat, progressive package, setting humanity on an inevitable march toward modernity. This temple, standing millennia older and utterly alone, shatters that comforting timeline. It presents a world where monumental architecture, complex astronomy, and sophisticated social organization flourished long before the first brick of Ur was laid or the first pyramid was planned. This isn't just an earlier date on a chart. It is a fundamental challenge to the idea of a single, privileged origin point. Historians and archaeologists now grapple with a far messier, more fascinating reality. The debate centers on the concept of the pristine civilization. This term described societies like Sumer or the Olmec, thought to have developed their complexity entirely independently, without outside influence. The buried temple suggests there may have been other, even earlier pristine experiments, ones that succeeded brilliantly for a time and then vanished, leaving no direct descendants to carry their story forward. This opens the door to a radical possibility that the rise of complex society was not a one-time invention in the Middle East that then spread outward, but a phenomenon that could ignite independently in different places at different times, given the right confluence of environmental pressures, social ideas, and human ingenuity. The temple's builders represent what some theorists call a false start or a lost chapter. Their achievement shows that cultural development is not a straight, upward line, but a story of fits and starts, of brilliant zeniths followed by periods of forgetting or regression. A society can reach a breathtaking peak of knowledge and coordination, as evidenced by their engineering and astronomy, and then, due to climate catastrophe, social fragmentation, or simply the passage of time, that specific constellation of knowledge can dissolve. The techniques for softening stone or the meanings behind their symbols faded, only to be painstakingly rediscovered by other cultures millennia later. This forces academia to adopt a more humble, global perspective. It moves us away from a Eurocentric, or more accurately, a Middle Eastern-centric view of innovation. Advanced social organization was not the sole property of river valleys in one part of the world. It could arise in the highlands, in the forests, in places we once considered peripheral to the main story of human progress. The temple compels us to see the map of early human achievement as dotted with many potential cradles, some of which nurtured their children to adulthood, like Mesopotamia, and others which, for reasons we may never fully know, left only a single magnificent child behind, buried and waiting to speak. This isn't about diminishing the accomplishments of known ancient cultures, but about expanding our appreciation for the sheer diversity and resilience of the human experiment. Our past is not a simple family tree with one trunk, but a vast, tangled forest where some of the oldest and mightiest roots have only just been found. The temple stones are a skeleton, but the rituals were its beating heart. To understand its true power, we must move beyond the architecture and envision the life it was built to contain. This was not a silent monument to a distant god, but a vibrant social engine, a machine for forging community in a changing world. Its primary function was likely as a grand seasonal gathering place. Imagine groups traveling for weeks from distant valleys and highlands, converging on this sacred valley at the solstice. They would bring not just their labor for the ongoing construction, but stories, goods, marriages, and disputes. The temple provided the stage, a neutral and awe-inspiring ground where scattered bands could negotiate alliances, exchange rare materials like obsidian for tools or pigments for ceremony, and resolve conflicts under a shared sacred authority. These gatherings transformed a loose network of people into a society with common rules and a shared destiny. The rituals performed within its resonant chambers were the glue of this new identity. Anthropologists who study ritual theory point out that the very act of building such a place is itself a transformative ceremony. The coordinated labor of moving a megalith, the shared hardship and triumph, forges a powerful we among the participants. It physically instills a collective ideology, a story that says, "Together we can move mountains and touch the stars." This story becomes the foundation of their culture, more durable than the stone itself. Within the temple, more intimate rites would have taken place. Initiation ceremonies for young adults, held in chambers aligned with specific stars, could have used the disorienting acoustics and perhaps ritual beverages to guide them through visionary experiences. These rites were not mere tradition, they were the vital transmission cables for cultural knowledge. In a world without writing, elders would use the carvings on the walls as a teaching tool, pointing to a spiral to explain the cycle of seasons, or to a constellation to mark the time for planting a sacred seed. The temple was a living library and a school, ensuring that the hard-won knowledge of astronomy, ecology, and mythology was passed to the next generation, binding them to the legacy of their ancestors and the order of the cosmos. This perspective offers a revolutionary way to view the temple's legacy. It suggests the monument may not be the product of a fully formed civilization with kings and bureaucrats as we define it. Instead, it could have been the very catalyst that started one. The temple provided the reason for disparate groups to cooperate on an unprecedented scale. That cooperation, repeated season after season, generation after generation, would have demanded new social roles, organizers, ritual specialists, skilled masons, and negotiators. Complexity did not create the temple created complexity. It was a focal point around which a new way of being human, organized around shared belief and monumental purpose, began to crystallize. The community was not its builder but its creation. The silent stones could not tell their story alone. Their secrets, buried for over 11,000 years, required a new kind of vision to be unlocked, a partnership between ancient mystery and the most advanced tools of modern science. The initial discovery itself was a technological marvel, made not by a shovel but by ground-penetrating radar, a device that sends harmless pulses of energy into the earth and listens for the echoes that reveal hidden structures. This non-invasive peek beneath the soil was just the beginning. Once the site was identified, the team deployed an even more powerful eye in the sky, LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Mounted on drones and aircraft, LiDAR uses laser pulses to strip away the modern forest canopy and vegetation, creating a hyper-detailed, three-dimensional map of the ground surface. This revealed not just the temple's outline, but the entire ancient landscape around it, showing subtle terraces, pathways, and water channels invisible to the naked eye, sketching the ghost of the builder's world without moving a single stone. Inside the temple, the fragile, intricate carvings posed another challenge. How do you study a symbol without touching it and share it with experts across the globe? The answer was three-dimensional photogrammetry. Specialists used arrays of high-resolution cameras to take thousands of overlapping photographs of every wall and pillar. Sophisticated software then stitched these images together, building a perfect millimeter-accurate digital twin of the entire interior. This virtual model allows researchers to examine the symbols under different lighting conditions, measure the depth of each cut, and even simulate how sunlight would have moved through the chambers on a solstice morning, all from a computer screen halfway around the world. It preserves the site in a state of perfect digital immortality, safeguarding it for future generations of scholars who may one day crack its code. The science went even deeper, to the microscopic and molecular level. Isotopic analysis became a key to understanding the builders themselves. By studying the ratios of different chemical isotopes trapped in the tooth enamel of the few individuals found in the area, scientists could reconstruct their diets, revealing whether they relied more on wild plants, terrestrial animals, or river fish. Even more telling, strontium isotope analysis acts as a geological GPS, because the strontium signature in your teeth and bones reflects the geology of the place where you grew up. Researchers could determine that some individuals buried near the temple had, in fact, spent their childhoods in distant valleys. This proved the temple drew people from a wide region, confirming the story told by the sourced stones with hard biological data. These tools represent a quiet revolution in archaeology. As one geoarchaeologist on the project explained, we are no longer just excavators, we are remote sensors. We can ask questions about trade, migration, and daily life without relying solely on rare, fragile artifacts. We can see the invisible patterns of a whole society. This synergy allows us to investigate with a light touch, preserving the sacred site for future study while extracting volumes of information our predecessors could only dream of. The temple, a monument to ancient knowledge, is now being decoded by a new pantheon of tools, writing a thrilling new chapter in our endless quest to understand the human journey. A discovery that rewrites history must first survive a trial by fire. In the world of archaeology, extraordinary claims do not simply replace textbooks, they must withstand a storm of scrutiny from peers who are trained to doubt. The initial publication of the temple's age and complexity sent shockwaves through academic circles, followed swiftly by a chorus of skeptical voices. These were not dismissals born of jealousy, but rigorous challenges from experts demanding every assumption be proven. The first line of questioning targeted the very foundation of the claim, the 11,500-year date. Critics pointed out that carbon dating can be contaminated by older organic material that washes into a site, and they asked whether the charcoal samples truly came from the construction event itself, or from a much older forest fire that happened to burn on that spot millennia before anyone built there. Others proposed a simpler explanation that the site was not a temple at all, but a remarkable freak of nature. Could the seemingly perfect right angles and concentric circles be the result of rare geological folding, a quirk of erosion that mimicked human design? Perhaps, they argued, a later culture, one we already know from the historical record, simply found this impressive natural rock formation and decided to build a small shrine within it, leaving behind the few artifacts that were later misinterpreted as belonging to a much older, lost civilization. This theory of cultural reuse is a common and sensible counterargument in archaeology, suggesting we are seeing not a lost chapter, but a familiar one written in an unusual location. The Discovery team welcomed this debate, for it is the essential mechanism of science. They responded not with rhetoric, but with more data. To address the dating concerns, they turned to the second, independent method, optically stimulated luminescence. This technique dates the last time the quartz grains in the soil around the foundation stones saw sunlight. The results from multiple samples taken from beneath the immovable megaliths converged perfectly with the carbon dates, creating a robust chronological anchor that was virtually impossible to explain by contamination or reuse. To counter the natural formation theory, geologists were brought in to examine the stone joints. They found clear, repetitive tool marks and dressing patterns that followed intentional design, not natural fracture lines. The hydrological channels cut through solid bedrock followed a logical, engineered path for water management, something erosion never creates. The peer review process became a collaborative siege, with skeptics firing questions and the original team strengthening their walls with each round of evidence. This healthy, often fierce debate is what separates a paradigm shift from a passing fantasy. It forces every detail into the light, demanding that the new story be built not on a single dramatic find, but on an interlocking framework of proof that can bear the weight of a rewritten world. The temple's survival of this gauntlet is, in many ways, as significant as its discovery, for it means the history books are not being torn on a whim, but carefully revised with a new, undeniable line of evidence now etched in stone. The buried temple is not an isolated ghost in the archaeological record. Its staggering age and sophistication force us to look across the globe with new eyes to other sites that have long challenged our timelines, asking a profound question: is this a singular miracle or the most compelling piece in a much larger, hidden puzzle? When we place it alongside other controversial discoveries, a tantalizing pattern begins to emerge, suggesting our distant past may have been dotted with many such experiments in complexity. In southeastern Turkey, the site of Göbekli Tepe stands as a powerful parallel. Discovered in the 1990s, it consists of multiple stone circles built with immense T-shaped pillars carved with elaborate animal reliefs. For decades, its accepted date of around 11,600 years old has rewritten the narrative of the Neolithic, proving that hunter-gatherers could and did construct monumental ritual sites before the advent of agriculture. Like our buried temple, Göbekli Tepe displays precise stonework, celestial alignments, and was deliberately backfilled, sealed away by its own builders. It represents a similar cultural impulse, a drive to build the sacred on a grand scale at the very dawn of the current geological epoch. Across the world, on the island of Java in Indonesia, lies the terraced hill of Gunung Padang. Local law has long held it to be an ancient sacred site, but conventional archaeology dated its uppermost megalithic structures to only a few thousand years old. However, subsurface surveys using technologies like ground-penetrating radar and core drilling have revealed evidence of much older, deeply buried chambers and layered construction. Some researchers propose the hill is a massive, multi-layered pyramid, with the earliest phases potentially dating back more than 20,000 years, a claim that is fiercely debated but underscores the persistent mystery of humanity's early architectural capabilities. Then there are the structures that lie beneath the waves. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument presents a stark geological riddle. This submerged formation features what appear to be massive stepped terraces, right-angled corners, and even a carved face. Mainstream geologists argue it is a spectacular example of natural sandstone fracturing, shaped by strong ocean currents. Yet, the sheer geometric regularity and the presence of what look like tool marks lead other investigators to wonder if it could be a natural formation modified by human hands in a distant era when sea levels were far lower, potentially over 10,000 years ago. Each of these sites, from the Turkish highlands to the Indonesian jungle to the Pacific seafloor, shares a family resemblance with our buried temple. They are all architectural outliers, stubbornly ancient and complex, often dismissed or debated for decades because they simply do not fit the established story. They feature megalithic construction, possible astronomical orientations, and a profound air of intentionality. Most tellingly, they all exist in a kind of historical solitude, disconnected from the familiar lineage of later civilizations. This comparative view shifts the perspective dramatically. If we consider them not as bizarre anomalies, but as potential nodes in a lost network, the implications are staggering. They may represent not one lost civilization, but many separate flashes of cultural brilliance that ignited in different corners of the world during and after the last ice age. Perhaps they were connected by shared knowledge carried along ancient migration routes or by a common response to the global climatic chaos of the era. Or perhaps they are evidence of a recurring human phenomenon, showing that whenever conditions allowed and whenever a powerful unifying idea took hold, our ancestors were capable of achieving monumental sophistication, regardless of whether they lived in cities. The buried temple, therefore, becomes more than a single rewrite. It is a key that helps us recognize a pattern we were previously unwilling to see. It suggests that the story of early human society is not a linear march from simplicity to complexity, but a mosaic, a tapestry woven with many threads, most of which have long since faded from view. We are left not with a solved mystery, but with a far more exciting one, a growing collection of pieces from a puzzle we are only beginning to assemble, each stone circle and submerged terrace whispering that the first chapters of our collective story are far richer and far stranger than we ever dared to believe. The stones speak to something deeper than our intellect. This temple's mystery resonates far beyond academic journals, reaching into a core part of the human spirit. We are, by nature, a species captivated by origins and unsettled by silence in our own story. A blank space on the historical map is not merely an absence of data, it is an invitation for the imagination, a vacuum that our curiosity rushes to fill. The discovery of a sophisticated, nameless culture fulfills a profound psychological need, offering a narrative that is more dramatic, more romantic, and ultimately more mysterious than any linear timeline of progress. It suggests that the past holds grand, forgotten epics, not just simple tales of survival. This fascination is evident in our cultural consumption. From the enduring allure of Atlantis to the global intrigue surrounding ancient astronaut theories, we are drawn to stories of lost knowledge and vanished golden ages. Media analysts note that these narratives often spike in popularity during times of rapid, unsettling change in our own world. They provide a form of escapism, certainly, but also a comforting perspective. If great civilizations can rise and fall, then our own modern anxieties are part of a much longer, cyclical human story. The temple becomes a tangible anchor for this feeling, a real place where a what-if becomes a what was. It validates our suspicion that the official story is incomplete. There is also a powerful appeal in the idea of a sophisticated culture that existed without the trappings we associate with civilization, like sprawling cities or written records as we know them. It presents a purer, perhaps more noble version of human potential. This culture achieved astronomical precision and moved mountains through collective will and shared belief, not through empires or coercion. In a modern world often felt as fragmented and impersonal, their story feels like a testament to what community and shared purpose can accomplish. It is a narrative of collaboration on a monumental scale, a reminder that our ancestors' greatest triumphs may have been built not by command but by consensus. Ultimately, this buried temple forces a welcome humility upon us. It reminds us that history is not a sealed book written by the victors, but a living manuscript being constantly revised with each turn of the earth. The standard textbook timeline provides a comforting structure, but it can also make the human journey feel predetermined, even mundane. A discovery like this shatters that predictability. It reintroduces wonder, surprise, and deep mystery into our own ancestry. The temple's greatest gift may not be a rewritten date, but a rekindled sense of awe, the thrilling realization that our past is still capable of whispering secrets that change everything we thought we knew about ourselves. The moment of discovery is only the beginning of a far more delicate race. With global attention now fixed on the temple, its greatest threat shifted from the slow patience of Earth to the swift pressures of the modern world. News of a site that rewrites history acts like a beacon, drawing not only scholars and the curious, but also those who see its stones as commodities to be looted and sold on the illegal antiquities market. The very air that now circulates through its ancient chambers carries dust, moisture, and microbial spores that can slowly degrade carvings that have survived for millennia. The site managers face a profound dilemma: how to share this wonder with humanity while shielding it from humanity's impact. Their first line of defense is often invisible. A perimeter of discrete seismic and motion sensors now surrounds the valley, monitored 24 hours a day to deter unauthorized entry. On site, conservators work with the precision of surgeons, applying minute amounts of specialized consolidants to fragile stone surfaces, strengthening them against erosion without altering their appearance. To manage the environment within the temple itself, they have installed a network of wireless sensors that constantly track temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide levels, allowing them to adjust ventilation subtly to maintain the stable conditions the stones have known for ages. The challenge of visitors is met with innovative foresight. Rather than building intrusive walkways or stairs that would scar the landscape, engineers have designed elevated, transparent pathways that seem to float above the ground. These allow people to witness the scale and detail of the temple without their footsteps compacting the ancient soil or their touch wearing away the symbols. Visitor numbers are strictly limited and timed, with advance booking required, creating an experience of reverence rather than a crowded tourist attraction. Perhaps the most vital preservation work happens far from the site itself, in the digital realm. Using the terabytes of data from the photogrammetry and LiDAR scans, teams have constructed a fully immersive, three-dimensional virtual model of the entire temple complex. This digital twin is more than a backup, it is an access point. Schools around the world can take virtual field trips inside the chambers. Researchers can examine tool marks from their desks, and the public can explore without ever adding stress to the physical site. It ensures that even if the unimaginable happened, the temple's form and data would endure. Recognizing the site's outstanding universal value, a consortium of archaeologists and local authorities, supported by international heritage bodies, has begun the meticulous process of nominating the temple for UNESCO World Heritage status. This is not merely an honorary title. As a representative from a heritage protection non-governmental organization explained, designation brings a framework for coordinated international support, funding for ongoing conservation, and a stronger legal mandate to combat looting and unsustainable development in the surrounding area. It places the temple on a global list of humanity's most cherished places, affirming that its story belongs to all people. The race is quiet and constant, a balance between openness and protection, between immediate wonder and long-term survival. The goal is clear: to ensure that this fragile window into a forgotten past remains open for centuries to come. The temple was lost once to the forces of nature, buried in a sudden act of preservation or catastrophe. The commitment now is to not let it be lost a second time to the slower, more predictable perils of our own age. Its silent stones, having waited over 11,000 years to speak, must now be given the chance for their story to be heard for generations yet unborn. Every new answer unearthed at the temple seems to birth a dozen fresh mysteries. The site has become less of a solved puzzle and more of a vast, intricate question mark carved in stone, and the international team overseeing it is now drafting a roadmap for the next decade of exploration. Their plans are ambitious, targeting the deepest layers of the unknown with tools that blend the ancient art of excavation with the cutting edge of 21st century science. The immediate focus is on reaching the virgin soil, the ground upon which the very first stone was laid. Future excavations will carefully peel back deeper, older strata beneath the temple's foundations, searching for evidence of even earlier structures or sacred activity on the site. Did this location hold significance for thousands of years before the great pillars were raised? Finding a simpler, older shrine beneath the monumental complex would trace the evolution of the builder's beliefs and social organization, showing the humble seed from which this architectural giant grew. Beyond the soil, the most intimate clues may lie in the most minute of remains. Scientists are preparing for the possibility of recovering organic material, perhaps from sealed construction offerings or even from the few resting places found in the area. The goal is to conduct advanced ancient DNA analysis. Success here could be transformative. Extracting and sequencing genetic material would allow researchers to understand the builders' ancestry, to see how they were related to other known prehistoric populations, and to trace their migration paths across the ancient landscape. It could reveal whether the temple was the work of a single, cohesive genetic group or a melting pot of different peoples drawn together by a shared ideology. This biological data would give faces and families to the anonymous architects, moving them from abstract builders into a chapter of our shared human story. The search also expands outward, far beyond the temple's walls. Using the detailed LiDAR maps as a guide, archaeologists plan extensive, systematic surveys of the entire region. They are looking for the faintest traces of the supporting world that must have existed: the quarries, the work camps, the seasonal gathering sites, and the paths that connected them. The discovery of even a single, smaller satellite site with similar symbols or construction techniques would be a breakthrough, proving the temple was not an isolated phenomenon but the central node in a cultural network. It would begin to sketch the outlines of their territory, their economy, and their daily lives, pulling a society back from the brink of oblivion. Perhaps the most tantalizing frontier is the script itself. Teams of computational linguists and data scientists are now applying advanced pattern recognition algorithms and artificial intelligence to the thousands of photographed symbols. The goal is not for a computer to translate the language, but to help human experts see patterns invisible to the naked eye. The software can analyze the frequency, positioning, and sequencing of symbols across the entire temple, searching for grammatical structures, repeated narrative formulas, or even mathematical notations related to the astronomical alignments. As one lead archaeologist shared, her greatest hope is to identify a single, verifiable logogram, perhaps a symbol for sun or water, that can be conclusively linked to a feature in the temple or the environment. That one key could begin to crack the code, turning a wall of beautiful mystery into a legible text. When asked about their most burning personal questions, the researchers' answers reflect the profound human curiosity driving the work. One wants to know if the temple's final burial was an act of reverence or retreat. Another is consumed by the logistical puzzle, yearning to find a tool workshop or a sled path that reveals the exact method of transport. The project director confesses his deepest question is simpler and more profound. What did they call this place? Did they have a name for their sanctuary, a word that echoed in their ceremonies? The next decade of research holds the promise of revolutionary clarity, but also the potential for deeper, more wonderful confusion. Each planned dig, each DNA sequence, each algorithmic analysis could either solidify the temple's status as a revolutionary outlier or reveal complexities that further blur the lines between myth and history. The journey into this lost world has only just begun. The silent stones of the temple do more than rewrite a timeline. They hold up a mirror to our own identity. This discovery pushes past the boundaries of archaeology and into the realm of fundamental human questions. If the drive to create monumental art, to organize society around a shared purpose, and to encode abstract ideas in symbolic language emerged not once in a fertile river valley, but repeatedly in the human story, then these impulses must be woven into the very fabric of who we are. The temple suggests that civilization is not an invention, but an expression, a latent potential that lies within us, waiting for the right catalyst to bring it forth. For generations, we have told ourselves a story of linear ascent, a slow climb from simple survival to complex society. This narrative can subtly imply that our early ancestors were less capable, less imaginative, or less fully human than we are today. The buried temple shatters that comforting hierarchy. It reveals people who were our complete cognitive equals, facing a tumultuous world with the same profound capacities for wonder, planning, and collective action that we possess. They channeled those capacities not into writing legal codes or building empires, but into aligning tons of stone with the stars and carving their understanding of the cosmos into pillars meant to outlast the ages. Their achievement forces us to expand our definition of what a successful human society looks like. It shows that cultural brilliance can flourish along many different paths, not just the one that leads to skyscrapers and supercomputers. This reframes the entire Paleolithic era, that immense stretch of time we often dismiss as a mere prelude to real history. Instead of a long, dark waiting room, it becomes a vibrant incubator. For tens of thousands of years, small groups of humans lived in intimate conversation with the natural world, observing animal migrations, plant cycles, and celestial patterns. They developed sophisticated toolkits, created breathtaking cave art, and passed down complex oral traditions. The temple is the ultimate proof that this deep time education was not idle. It was accumulating, generation by generation, into a reservoir of knowledge about materials, geometry, and social cooperation. The seeds of civilization were not suddenly planted 5,000 years ago. They were slowly cultivated over hundreds of centuries, germinating in the minds of people who watched the ice retreat and the forests grow. What does this say about us? It suggests that the urge to build meaning is as fundamental as the need for food or shelter. When faced with a world in flux, these ancient people did not merely adapt to survive, they chose to create. They transformed their anxiety about a changing climate into a project of cosmic harmony. They translated their observations of the heavens into a permanent, physical calendar. In doing so, they were asserting a uniquely human form of agency, declaring that even in the face of vast, impersonal forces, we can leave a mark that says, "We were here, we understood, and we mattered." This temple is not a relic of a primitive past. It is a testament to a timeless human resilience, the enduring drive to make sense of our place in the universe and to forge community through shared awe. Ultimately, this discovery stretches our sense of kinship across an almost unimaginable gulf of time. The 11,500 years separating us from the builders feels less like a barrier and more like a bridge. We look at their handiwork and recognize our own minds at play, our own longing for permanence and connection. Their story expands the canvas of human potential, reminding us that our current chapter of global, technological civilization is just one recent expression of a deep and ancient capacity. The temple's greatest lesson may be one of humility and hope, showing that the roots of our creativity and cooperation run far deeper than we knew, anchored in a shared past that is only now beginning to reveal its profound and mysterious depths. Pulling these disparate threads into a single narrative feels like reassembling a shattered mosaic. We have the tiles, the precise date, the impossible architecture, the silent symbols, and the empty landscape, but the full picture they form requires a leap of informed imagination. Based on the evidence, a tentative, breathtaking story begins to emerge. It is a narrative not of kings and conquests, but of collective will and cosmic yearning. Imagine, in the final centuries of the last ice age, a world in violent transition. The climate is unraveling, familiar hunting grounds are vanishing beneath new forests, and the very rhythm of the seasons feels unpredictable. In this era of profound instability, scattered bands of hunter-gatherers across a wide region share more than just a changing landscape. They share a deep spiritual vision, a growing body of astronomical knowledge passed down through generations of sky watchers. Perhaps prompted by a charismatic shaman or a shared prophetic dream, a radical idea takes hold. To survive the chaos of a world remade, they must build a point of permanent order, a sanctuary that mirrors the reliable cycles of the heavens. This is not the decision of a chieftain, but a consensus born of shared necessity. A coalition forms, a loose alliance of different groups who agree to meet seasonally at a chosen, spiritually potent valley. Their project is generational, a covenant between ancestors and descendants. For decades, perhaps centuries, their annual gatherings revolve around this sacred work. Quarry teams possessing generations of stone knowledge identify the perfect sources miles away. Transport becomes a ritual in itself, a slow, ceremonial relay where moving a single megalith cements alliances and forges a common identity. At the site, master builders, the engineers of their age, direct the placement of each stone using levers, ropes, and a profound intuitive grasp of geometry and physics. They are not constructing a dwelling, but a machine, a resonant chamber aligned with solstice sunrises and specific stars, designed to harness sound and light to alter consciousness and bind the community to the cosmos. Within its walls, ritual specialists use the symbols carved on the pillars as teaching tools, guiding initiates through stories of creation, flood, and celestial order, their ceremonies amplified by the architecture's own haunting acoustics. This temple becomes their civilization. It is their university, their cathedral, and their parliament. The social complexity needed to plan, source, and build it does not come from urban density or bureaucratic hierarchy, but from a shared, consuming purpose that transcends individual bands. They are a civilization of the mind and spirit, their greatest export not goods but an idea, a unified vision of humanity's place within an orderly universe. Then the unthinkable happens, whether by a catastrophic mudslide that buries the site in a single, terrible event, or by a deliberate, solemn act of consecration as their cultural epoch wanes, the temple is sealed. The coalition fragments, the specialized knowledge fades into myth, and within a few generations, the memory of the builders and their grand purpose dissolves into the very soil that covers their work. Their legacy is not a lineage of kings or a written history, but a single, perfect artifact of their collective ambition, a cosmic anchor point meant to steady a trembling world, left as a message in stone for a future they could never foresee. This synthesis is, of course, a hypothesis. It is our best current guess, woven from the hard evidence of science and the softer threads of human intuition. It may be revised with every new scraping of the trowel every fresh day to point from a mass spectrometer. But for now, it offers a coherent, evidence-based vision of a lost epoch of human achievement, one that redefines what civilization can be when driven not by material accumulation, but by a shared dream of cosmic harmony. The buried temple stands as a silent stone testament, but its true legacy is not in the rock alone. It is in the quiet revolution it sparks within our own understanding. We have journeyed together from the first electronic ping of the radar to the staggering realization of its age, from the impossibility of its engineering to the haunting silence of its symbols. This is not merely a story about a building. It is a story about us, about the profound and often forgotten capacities of the human spirit when faced with a world in flux. The temple's greatest gift is a fractured timeline, a crack in the foundation of a story we thought was settled. That fracture is not an end, but a magnificent opening. It invites us to imagine a richer, more complex dawn, one where the light of ingenuity and shared purpose could ignite in many places, at many times, long before the first city walls were ever raised. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be civilized, suggesting that our ancestors' worth was not measured by the scale of their empires, but by the depth of their connection to each other and to the cosmos they so carefully studied. This discovery is a powerful lesson in humility. For all our modern knowledge, we must remain students of a past that is vaster and more mysterious than any textbook could contain. Each stone of this temple is a question, not an answer, a reminder that history is not a sealed book but a living conversation with the earth itself. The excavation may be complete, but the real exploration has only just begun. If this single site could rewrite our origins, what other profound narratives lie buried just beneath the surface of our world, waiting for their moment to speak? What forgotten chapters of the human story are still hidden in plain sight, beneath forests, deserts, and seas? We would love to hear your thoughts on this profound mystery in the comments below. Share which aspect of the temple's story resonated most with you, or what you believe its ultimate purpose might have been. For more journeys into the forgotten corners of history, be sure to subscribe. Remember, the past is never as simple as it seems, and the next great discovery, the one that changes everything once more, is always waiting just beneath the next turn of the soil.